time for the review. The technical full name of this game is Railroad Revolution, Railroad Evolution.
Wow.
They need to change that.
The name has evolved within itself.
Railroad Revolution, Railroad Evolution is a 2019 release. The designers are Marco Canetta and Stefania Nicolini, and the artist is Mariano Iannelli, and the publisher is the amazing What's Your Game. This is a game with a current weight of 3.67. It plays 2 to 4 players, and it plays in about 90 minutes to 2 hours. I think we found 2.5 hours is generally for us.
Yeah, I think 2.5 hours, because I do think that the evolution does add more decisions to be made.
Oh yeah, very much so. Tell me, Ben. Tell me about this game. What are you doing in Railroad Revolution?
Well,
which I will
Tom,
never just call it Railroad Revolution again.
Well, you can call it RRRE. Let me tell you. So the story with Railroad Revolution Evolution, because I will shorten it a little bit, is that the base game Railroad Revolution came out about in 2016, about 4 years ago. Super fun game, but very quickly it was determined that one aspect of it was broken, just way overpowered and easily overpowered. And it really bothered a lot of people. It became a whole to-do on Board Game Geek, and it was also kind of like a blight for, I imagine, for What's Your Games, because they're known for these really thinky, heavy games that are, they release one game a year, and the game that they release is usually pretty much like dead on, right?
Oh yeah, I mean Madeira, I think, is the absolute height of what they've released, and it's such an amazing game. But
Nippon is like
is great.
That used to be like my favorite game of all time.
Their lightest game they put out was Loot Island. I love Loot Island. It's crazy good.
Zhanguo is great. Zhanguo is really underrated. I have Signori, but I have not actually played it. But another one on the list.
You should all know on the podcast that we are actually in a Catholic church in a confessional right now. That's why Ben is copping to so much right now.
I know. I should just lie.
You could just sit down. You don't need to be on your knees. It's okay.
Yeah,
we're good.
So anyway, the basically Railroad Evolution goes and fixes the stuff that went a little bit awry in Railroad Revolution. So basically, the way the game works is it's about trains, and you have this big map of America, and there's on the map, there's places that you can build stations, there's places where you can lay tracks. There's an area for that represents the Western Union telegraph service that I guess was built alongside the railroads in America. And so in the game, you are developing your rail barons, I'm imagining, and you're developing a network of rails and stations, et cetera, all in pursuit of glorious victory points. And basically, there's 4 actions you can do. You can build a train station, you can lay rail, you can create an office for the Western Union, or you can sell off some of your infrastructure, meaning that like some of the wood that you have, which is like, think Catan, you got like, settlements and roads. Those are basically train stations and rails in this game. You can sell off pieces of your wood essentially to raise some money. So those are the 4 things that you can do in the game. But what makes the game really fun and clever and interesting is that to do these actions, you're using little meeples, little wooden guys or girls, whatever. And the color of the meeple that you use is going to impact how your action is done. Meaning that if you use the orange meeple to build a train station, normally a train station might cost $500 in a certain city, but if you use the orange guy, it's free. So the orange guy will give you discounts. Or maybe the blue guy means you get to lay down not just 2 pieces of rail, but 3 pieces of rail. So you have these meeples, and you're trying to use them as best as possible to get the best kind of bonuses with your actions. And that is like the hook of the game, which is that you are it's not just that you do the actions, it's how you do the actions.
It's bonus hunting.
And bonus hunting
comes in several ways. When you build a station, if you're the first one to build it in a city, you get a bonus for building in that city, plus you get a one-time bonus for being the first person to build there. But wait, If you have a gray guy that you use to take that action, you get to take that first time bonus, even if you're the last person to build there. So there's
Exactly.
all kinds of little advantages to that, including things like there are little trains that you're going to have, and each train can have a tender, it can have a
Right.
train car behind it, and each one of those have benefits. And every time you flip that over, you're going to be able to take that train's bonus and whatever car is attached to it as well. So there's a lot of really complex. It becomes a very complex interaction game, even though the design of it is quite simple and pretty easy to understand.
Yeah, so I mean, certain Euro games are engine builders, right? Where you start off with something small, and by the end of the game, when you activate your engine, you get all these resources, blah 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 blah. This is not really that kind of game. This is not an engine building game. This is more of a how can I string along enough of these bonuses to create this like a little bit of a chain reaction where I go here, and because I use a meeple of this color, I'm able to get this bonus, which activates this thing over here, which means I go up on this track over here, which means I get this bonus that lets me do this thing over here, And so when you can have those moments, it can be really fun. But I'm just saying that because sometimes people go into games really wanting an engine building experience
Yeah.
because engine building gives you a certain kind of like feedback that's really fun and empowering, and I just want everyone to know that like that's not really what you get here. This is more about the fun of finding these like strings of combos to make what you need happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of the game scoring is end game scoring, and the end game scoring in this game comes from several different areas. There are contracts, which are basically there are A contracts, B contracts, C contracts, and D contracts. A contracts are the simplest ones, and it'll be something like build 2 stations in 2 different B cities and have 2 different rail lines that go through a triple mountain space or something along those lines. Once you've done that, boom, you have to sacrifice 1 man, and there's a man economy in this game where you can get men, but you also have to sacrifice men for certain actions. And when you do that, boom, you've banked 18 victory points at the end of the game, and you get to pick something from stack B, a B thing. And those are worth 25, 28 points sometimes, and they're harder to do, and so on and so forth. And they kind of they're also goals that drag you across the map. They pull you in deeper into the west and so on and so forth.
Yeah, in many ways, in this game, the actions that you take are sort of like in pursuit of 2 things. They're in pursuit of building your infrastructure, and they're also in pursuit of bolstering your endgame points, because your endgame points, in almost all your endgame points, are usually a reflection of the infrastructure you've built. It's sort of reminiscent of Concordia, in the sense that in that way, and that with Concordia, you are both like trying to build something out on the board.
Yes.
Right. But you also need to collect cards as multipliers, right? And so you need to have the balance of like, you need to have stuff that's out there on the board. So that way when your multipliers fire off, there's something for them to fire off about.
Right.
So you sort of have that going on because you have, you got your train stations and you got your rails. And then you have, like you said, there's the contracts, but there's also this, it's called an advancement track. It's not even they don't even try to give it any sort of theme. They don't even say like this is your prestige in the railroad industry or this is that. So in the base game, there were 3 advancement tracks, and this is where the big controversy was that one of the advancement tracks pertained to how well you've developed the Western Union. So if you've put down all the Western Union offices, so I think that was about 8 offices that you could put down, and you went up the track and got like a big multiplier, you could just very easily, with no effort, just get like just a ton of points.
Yes, and the cost for doing that was because everything in this game has a price, and so it's very much a economy management game.
Yes,
you don't score points based on money, but your money is one of the big limiting factors in terms of what you can do.
Yeah,
and it was just it was bad. It was incorrectly balanced, and even when they multiplied basically by 10 the cost, even then that Western Union track was still decided by the people that play this game tons at the Board Gaming Championships, still found it to be unbalanced.
Yes. So what they've done with Evolution is they just got rid of it. A lot of people are like, how did they fix the Western Union? That's the big question. The way they fixed it is they literally just ditched the whole 3-track system. When you get this expansion, you get a whole new board. a whole new board, and you.
A new fantastic point of view.
I mean, it's actually very true. It really is a new fantastic point of view because you get a brand new board that looks pretty much like the old board.
Very similar, except for the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom and the right.
Yeah, sure.
Because you have the same map. Everything's the same on the map. But now, instead of having 3 tracks on the right, you just have one single track. And I'll get to what the other parts of the board that are different are. But in terms of this because this is the hot topic.
The hot new
hotness.
thing.
What do they do? So you have this advancement track, and what happens is whenever you get an opportunity to move up the advancement track,
Which is one of the bonuses that happens all over the board.
All over.
There are trains that when you flip the train, you get to do that.
Yeah.
There are places where when you build a station, you get to do that. There are sometimes where you build track, you get to take a
it's called a deal.
deal. That's right. You get to take a deal, and deals there's a interesting economy. We don't really have time to get into it too much, but in addition to money, you also have shares. You have shares, and shares can be spent to take these deals, and these deals are another bonus action.
Yeah, there's like a bonus opportunity to get like really important things that
Yes.
that you will need. So so as you go up this track, if you see the icon that looks like a little stack of napkins, that means you get to go up the advancement track. So if you get the napkin action, you go up this track, and as you go up it, when you get to a certain point, you have an opportunity to claim what's called I forget what it's actually called, but it's a little tile, like a productivity tile or something like that. Production tile. It's a little tile that basically says, for example, you might get one that says, "Hey, you get 2 points for every road you have that's on hilly terrain." Because
road?
I'm sorry, I keep doing that.
All game you were doing that last time.
Because it's the Catan roads. What is the Catan roads? Train roads.
Those are roads. Train
rails.
Yes.
Because by the way, on the map where you lay the rail, there's 3 different types of terrain. There's plains, there's little hills, medium hills, mountainous, yada yada yada. So the point is that
they all cost money. The base cost is low, and with each hill, you're adding $50 more onto the cost.
Exactly. That gets back to what you were talking about, like how to manage your money.
Very much so.
So you might find a tile here as you reach like maybe it's about the 5th or 6th spot on the advancement track. You have an opportunity to take a tile that says, "Hey, you get at the end of the game, you're gonna get 2 points for every one of your rails that's in a lightly like a hilly area that has like one triangle." So that's worth 2 points for every. So maybe by the end of the game, you're in like 6 of those spots. That could be 12 points right there. So you take that tile and you put it on your player board, and your player board has a new sideboard, and the sideboard has its own kind of funky tower of tracks. It's
Two tracks. That go up. One track goes up 4 spaces, and the other track goes up 3 spaces.
Yes, they're side by side.
And when you put something in there, all of a sudden, whenever you do one of those things that advances you up that track on the side of the board, you can choose, instead of moving up the side of the board, you can instead move your piece on your own personal sideboard up 1 space. Some of them cost 2 move actions to move up 1. Some of them cost 3. But as you do that, all of a sudden you get 3 victory points for every station you have in a B city. Suddenly you move that up 1 space, and all of a sudden it's worth double.
Yeah.
So now it's worth 6 points each, and then up again 9 points each, and so on and so forth.
Exactly, because the higher you move your little tile on your sideboard, now you get to have a 2x multiplier, and then another tier 3x, then ultimately 4x if you can get up there. And so basically you're using the main board's advancement track now basically to claim scoring tiles. And by meaning that, like, I need this tile because I want to score points for this aspect of my infrastructure, the number of stations I built or whatever. Sometimes it's even, you talked about contracts. There's some scoring tiles that will give you points for how many contracts you've finished. So now the advancement track is more about claiming scoring opportunities.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. And it's an important distinction to make. It's not about like who's first up that or who's second, because on the playthrough on Tuesday, someone at the table kept saying, "Well, I'm not going to bother going up that track because I've already lost that track." And it's like it's not a win or lose track. It's more like
it's an action point efficiency.
It's just a way to claim more points.
Yes.
So it's really important to understand how that works. So that's like the big thing is that we don't have something that rewards you for building in the Western Union. We just have something where you can decide what you want to be rewarded in. And then depending on how much effort you put into those advancement tracks, you will get rewarded more and more and more.
So, given the last time you and I played the game, I was very surprised to see you play it on Tuesday because you had won so convincingly,
I know.
so devastatingly. I thought it was going to be the food chain magnate rule, where I never want to play this game again.
Wow.
I have seen,
That was I mean, I just trounced Tom last week. It was
destroyed me.
I've never
Destroyed
beaten you in a game ever
everybody.
before. You know
What?
what?
No, it's not possible.
I've never beaten you in a game.
Seriously?
I don't think so.
Wow, that's crazy.
Unless it was one of those crazy Avalon games.
That's crazy.
But that was a game where everything just fell in line so perfectly, and that's where you get the excitement in this game. Is when things are working right, it's like the best.
And here's the thing: when it's a game like this where there are 5 different ways you can get a lot of points in this game, so there's a lot of different things you can focus on. I thought I had a really good game, but it's all in-game scoring. So I thought right up until the end of the game, like, I think I'm in this. I think Ben's really, really good too, but I think I'm in this. And then you beat me by 40 points or something like that. It was
crazy.
massive.
And you know what? I really messed up something on my game on Thursday. I messed up the sequence of something at my very last turn, and I lost out on 42 points by doing that. And it was, but you know what? What's interesting about the game is it reminds me of Food Chain Magnate in another way, which is that I was just saying how in Food Chain Magnate, you can get pulled in different directions.
Yeah.
You have to, in this game and in Food Chain Magnate, I feel, you have to sort of keep your eyes open into where the game is really telling you where to go. Because Railroad Revolution, just even the base game, but even more so with Evolution, it's a very sort of friendly game. It's like, you want to take that action again, even though you already took it? Do it again. Go ahead. You want to place a rail there, even though Tom put a rail there? Go ahead.
Problem. Nobody blocks anything.
The answer is like yes to everything. And so what happens is there's like this overabundance of opportunities, and you can do this, you can do that, you can do. It's like, oh, have fun, go do it all.
But explore the space.
Yeah. If you're not paying attention, you will not be focused, and then you will fall into all the pitfalls. And it's like surprisingly devious in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the negative on the game is the fact that it's so endgame scoring heavy, and it is a little point salady. And I know that's a negative term, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, Stefan Feld games are amazing, but they're very much, you get points for 8 different things, and how you manage that and how you manage your opportunity is really the puzzle of the game and the challenge of the game. But the fact that there's so many different things that I can do, and nobody's action really blocks you from anything other than one small bonus. And there are so many bonuses to be had. I guess I kind of have a thing about modern game design, which feels very Pavlovian, right? It's like they're constantly ringing the bell so I can get the little treat. And I feel like that there's something about that at a certain point feels disingenuous. This game isn't the worst as far as that goes. It's actually quite mild. I like the game. I like the game quite a bit. But I think that maybe some games that balance a little more in-game scoring with end-game scoring do a better job of giving you guideposts as to how far along you are and where you are in relation to other people. I think in this game, it's easy to not really get a strong sense of how you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the advancement track, that does clue you in, and you can see when people are doing well with contracts. I mean, I think a counterpoint would be Great Western Trail. You're kind of in the blind in that game, and same with Concordia, and you sort of can get an idea. You're like, well, that person seems like they got everything together, and you sort of you make some estimates, but you really don't know until it all shakes out in the end. You know?
Really, because in Great Western Trail, the only thing hidden are the cows.
But in
you can see exactly how many stations a person has on the train track. You can see exactly how many buildings they've built, so you know virtually all of their points except for their cow points. Yeah,
but I've definitely played Great Western Trail before, where people have come. You know, you see all that stuff, and you're like, okay, and then someone just they've got the cow points, they got the hazards, they got they've got the random, they've got the objectives. So I guess there is more, but you're right. There's more feedback there. I guess I just don't mind when there's a big end game scoring thing. I sort of like the drama of it all. Like, okay, we've all done all these random things. How is this all going to shake out?
So we both like the game. You love the game. I like it very much. Who is this game not for, and who is this game for? Like, what's the sweet spot here?
Well, I don't know. I mean, who is it not for? I don't know who it's not for. When I play it, I feel like it's a surprisingly accessible game. But then when I've actually played it, in the last 2 playthroughs, there's been at least one person at the table who has actually kind of struggled with the rules and the iconography deep into the game.
Yeah.
And these are like not players who've never played games before. These are players who like know games very well, but like deep into the game is still asking, oh, remind me, how do I get a train again? How do I do that? And there's something going on with this game. Maybe it's with the iconography, where for certain people there's like a lack of stickiness, and it happens to all players of all games. But this game, I was surprised because it seems fairly straightforward to me.
It seems pretty medium weight in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, but it also makes me wonder why don't more games publish like a little player aid that just says these are what these icons mean, especially a game like this that is so dependent on using the icons to chain things. Like, why not a little thing that says this stack of napkins means move up the advancement track? This means this is how you get a train. Little things like that just make life much easier for people who are having trouble, processing, and it also makes it easier for people who have to like constantly answer the questions.
Well, Ben, let me tell you something. Prior to 2014, when you got into the hobby, we used to do something where we would make player aids on the Geek, and we would put them out, and everyone would print those out. I would say that probably 90% of Jennifer's games have player aids from the Geek that are printed out, and she's had laminated that are in the boxes that do exactly that.
Great.
It's just that this game isn't really out yet. I mean, it's not it's not available in the United States yet, so we may not have enough of those player aids. But I do think that somebody's going to put out a player aid that does exactly that. I wish What's Your Game had done that, and it's great that these days more and more games come out with exactly what you need for exactly that sort of situation. But some of them, it's not always, not every game is going to do that, but I think they should.
But by the way, I also want to point out that is such a minor little thing for me. I do actually think that this expansion really makes the game sing. I bought Railroad Revolution back in 2016 or 17. I played it once. I had a great time playing it, actually. And the group that I played with, we didn't encounter the Western Union issue. We had like just a straightforward playthrough. It was super fun, and then I never played it again. I never touched it again, and I always was thinking, oh, I should play that. But I actually think that in the back of my mind, I was thinking about that Western Union thing, and I was like, I had such a lovely time playing that game. I feel like I skirted something, and I don't want to face the reality of this Western Union thing.
How many games have you not played again because you don't want to ruin a good single experience?
Literally only Food Chain Magnate and this game. Literally the two of them, which is appropriate. And so this expansion comes along, and we played it for the first time at Strategicon back in February. And to me, it was like, oh, this is firing on all cylinders because they got rid of the tracks, but also we should mention that the Western Union now, the way the scoring works with it is, so there's this, imagine a section of the board that has like a bunch of imagine 7 squares essentially, and you put your build a station in a square, and if you build a station in 2 adjacent squares, there's like a little scoring condition right in between them, and the scoring condition
very much like Great Western Trail, actually.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, in the base game of Railroad Revolution, it wasn't a scoring condition. It was just like 10 points, or it was just a certain amount of points you just get. But now it's like, okay, if you've surrounded the scoring condition, you will get this many points for every city that you've built, every station you've built in like a level 4 city.
Which is great because it's almost always a points based on a condition on the board, which is
exactly
great.
Which means it's what I was talking about before. It's funneling you or channeling you into an activity. And in fact, the last gameplay, I was like, we're going to review this game on Saturday. I'm going to do a Western Union heavy strategy to see how does that compare to what happened. And guess what? I only laid 3 down because the game took me in a different direction. And my natural compulsion to just want to play a good game took over which I think actually says something of that the Western Union is maybe not has been brought down to earth.
Oh yeah,
right.
This game is going to be about looking for synergies.
Mm-hmm.
It's what is the accomplishment tile that I'm going to choose? Which of these contracts am I going to choose? Which Western Union things am I going to target? Sometimes you can get 3 of them that all fire for the same bonus, right?
Yeah.
You're getting bonus 4 different times for placing stations in 4 cities, and basically 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5 cities are going from east to west. The West Coast is the 5 cities, and so on and so forth. So,
and you know, when you talk about interaction, sorry, now I'm fired up. Now I'm
Sure.
like really excited
Here
to
we
start
go.
talking about it. When you talk about interaction with this game, it's like, yeah, you don't block anyone, but there are really subtle but important forms of interaction. You know, when you talk about the contracts, for instance, as soon as you're finished with like an A contract, you can then dig through the pile of B contracts to pull your next one. So if the sooner you can do that, the better it is, because a lot of those contracts can synergize with each other.
Correct.
So if I can get into that pile first, I have better chances of finding a contract that synergizes off of the contract I already did.
or just a situation that happens to be on the board. Like in order to
Yes.
fulfill that contract, I just happen to have two rail lines that are on planes. And look, in this B stack, there's something that says have 3 rails on planes. And
Exactly.
You're
So
golden.
it's like, it's really important to get to that stuff first.
Yes.
But it is also, by the way, even though those, you know, the only competition, direct competition, comes from getting those like first city bonuses, those are really, really important bonuses too. So you find yourself in this weird way of saying, well, I want to fulfill this contract, but I also want to spend this turn going to that city. Also, if I fulfill this contract, all the contracts require you to promote, quote unquote, promote. I'm doing air quotes, you can't see, but promote a worker, which basically means that you have to sacrifice one of your workers, and it's usually a fancy worker, because you start off with 4 white generic workers, and then over the course of the game, we talked about these different colored workers.
the engineer, the accountant, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you have to basically sacrifice them to this contract, and it's like, well, that's good because then I can start moving along in the contracts game. But I needed those workers really badly, which then brings us to you mentioned the man economy in this game.
Yes.
That man economy is brilliant.
Oh, it
Ask
is.
me.
Yeah.
It is brilliant.
You are constantly short of money, and you are constantly short of men, and in particular specialists.
Yes.
You're constantly wanting to have, oh my goodness, if I had the orange specialist, I could build this station for free. Instead, I have to pay $400 that I do not have, so I have to take an action to sell off some of my equipment in order to get more money. And it's a brilliant design.
And that selling off of equipment in the base game, you just literally ditch the pieces of wood from your player board and you collect the money that is associated with that piece. Now you have the opportunity to not only just ditch the piece of wood, but you on the new game board on the left side that's where you get all the little train cars and tenders that you mentioned that did not exist in the base game. And now if you want to, what those do is when you flip your train, you now get those special powers. So now you have an opportunity to kind of give yourself a little bit of an asymmetric power by customizing your train, and you can only do that by selling your stuff. So now all of a sudden selling your stuff is a much more interesting and exciting action. And on top of that, on top of the fact that the cars are going away because people are buying them off the side of the board, you can't just take any car. You have to take a car in a slot that's available. It's hard to describe, but basically, if I sell my station, there's like 5 spaces for stations to go into, let's say, and I put my station in one of them, and there's 2 train cars associated with that slot. So now someone else cannot sell their station to get those train cars. It's hard to describe, but
There's basically
layers.
5 different slots in which you can pick up trains and train cars, and they can fill up.
Yeah.
And you can run out, and the people can take the one that you wanted to take. So it's not multiplayer solitaire, because there is actually, even though nobody can block anybody, there is still a decent amount of player interaction. My final thing I want to say about the game is that this is a pretty great recycling effort. They took a game that was 80% great but had a fatal flaw to it,
Yeah.
And they have come back and they've renewed it. They've taken something instead of just, okay, throw that one on the ash heap because we didn't get this. And they've maintained everything that was good about it and made it better, not just by fixing the flaws in it, but by finding other opportunities to improve it. And I think they did a really, really good job. I'm really happy to have played it, and I look forward to playing it more. I really do.
Yeah, I think that basically Watch Your Game should just make this the base game, and then they can add an expansion. Dimitri and I were talking that what would be a great idea would be some sort of like a nice mini expansion would be some sort of like goals like who has built the longest network of Rails, or who has achieved the most contracts, who has the most workers at the end of the game, things like that, where now the whole table, it's just another layer of interaction for the game would be really wonderful and easy to implement.
So Ticket to Ride, adding in Ticket to Ride.
Add it, yeah, why not? It works. Why not? It's a fun game.
Folks, that was Railway Revolution, Railway Evolution. I told you I would keep calling it that, but you could just call it Railway Evolution. It is not currently out and available, but our understanding is that it is coming soon.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.